Welcome back to the channel. Every week I go searching for new vehicles that I might want to rebuild, some that I have pre-sold and some that I think might sell, and some that, well, are just my favorites. And when I do find them, if they're not ready for auction, I go ahead and throw them on my watch list and wait for them to come up for auction and then take a better look at them. Now generally from the time a car gets there to the time it comes up for auction is about 60 days. Some are a little bit less, some are a little bit more. Well, this particular car was a little bit above average. It sat in my watch list for just over 6 years. Why? Well, it was for sale by an insurance company, so it was most likely due to litigation. Somebody was suing somebody trying to claim fault, and that's how long it took. I actually have a customer of mine that was one of my rebuilds, and they're going on 2 years, still fighting over the same accident, and the car turned left in front of them. It wasn't their fault at all, but they're still dragging it out. So it doesn't surprise me at all that this one might have taken 6 years for the dust to settle. Now, that's not really a problem because the auctions are usually pretty good about seeing a car that's been in there that long and take some more pictures, some recent pictures. Unfortunately, with this car, they didn't. So I'm bidding blind. What does this car look like? I have no idea. A lot can happen in 6 years. And since it's in Texas, you know it's been through at least one hailstorm, if not more. And in Texas, everything is bigger, including their hail. So this thing could have hail dents everywhere. It could have no windows. It could have been run over in the yard by a forklift. Who knows? And actually, I've had cars that happened to. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bid on it and hope for the best. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, why don't you go see it? Well, it's in Texas, I'm in Chicago. I'm not making the 1,200-mile trip down there just to go take a look at it. And I could definitely send somebody, a third-party inspector, to inspect it for me and let me know on a buy-in. But where's the fun in that? So let's bid on it and see what I can win this car for and see if we can make a good deal.
Sale pending.
I didn't even have to bid on that one. I had the high pre-bid and nobody on site or at the live auction even bid me up. So my high bid was the winner. Now this is actually not the first time I've won this car. I won it the week before the exact same way. They didn't give it to me, they just ran it back in the auction this week. This week they counter offered me with a $600 price. I refused it and they ended up just giving it to me for my $100. So it kind of worries me. Why was it only $100? Why did nobody on site bid on it? Did I just buy a twisted ball of metal? Did I buy a wheel? Did I buy just some paperwork? I don't know. Now you can see why it isn't even worth me sending a third-party inspector down there because it would have doubled the price of the vehicle. So these are the pictures that I'm basing this off of. 6 years ago in 2018, 10/12/2018. This is the day the car came in the auction. Just for idea of how long it's been here, the stock number begins with a 2. They now begin with a 4. They're almost double. They've gone through 20 million cars in the time this thing has sat here. We got a little paint peeling on our hood. Not a big deal. Looks like a little paint peeling back here on our door. Everything looks pretty good here. Don't see any damage on this side. All our paint is still adhered. Look how clean this bumper reinforcement is. Up here, these things are rotted out, usually to the point where they fall off the car. And there's our damage. Just hit right here in the quarter. Definitely have some paint peeling. And we got a taillight, part of it anyway. We got our typical rolled up dashboard. Looks like it could use a cleaning. Not a big deal. 97,000 miles. Definitely needs a cleaning in the back seat. Bath under the hood. But overall, doesn't look like a really bad car. Under 100,000 miles, no rust, and minimal damage. At least that's what it looked like 6 years ago. Let's go see what we bought. See you in Texas. Welcome to warm, sunny Amarillo, Texas, where rust is never a problem, but dust is. So far, so good. We didn't just get a pile of parts. We got something that resembles a car. Moderately looks like the pictures. We do have a little less paint on the front edge of that hood and a little less air in our tires. Hopefully that's all we're missing. So let's take a quick walk around it and see what 6 years in the auction has done to this little guy. This side doesn't look too bad.
Well, there's that dust that's a problem. Detail guy's gonna hate me. And they stuffed the bumper inside. Looks like after it had collected a bunch of dirt. Missing a little more paint back here. Everything looks good. Nice clean exhaust tips, no rust. Missing some more paint over here. And some black trim off of our belt moldings. Some more paint on our fenders missing. And we do have some hail damage to be expected in Texas. See what under the hood looks like. Wow. We got at least a yard of dirt in there. That has been untouched for 6 years. At least I know no one was messing with it in the auction. We'll just close that and pretend it's clean.
Well, we made our 1,200-mile voyage back from Texas, where it was 80+ degrees, to the land of corruption and rust, where it's like 40. We really didn't have any issues, other than maybe losing some flakes of paint on the way back. But that's weight reduction, saves on fuel economy. So I came back here, and I figured I'd get it started here because I had this waiting on my front porch. It's a new product from Topdon. It's a jumper, and it's supposed to start a 9-liter gas engine or a 7-liter diesel engine, up to. So they told me it would start this thing with no problem. But there's a big difference between a 7-liter gas engine that ran yesterday and a 3.4-liter gas engine that ran, well, 6 years ago at least. So let's see if this thing will start it, because if it will, I'm going to be quite impressed. My old Snap-on jumper pack is due for another refurbish. It's like its third one. So it probably wouldn't start this thing either. I was planning on throwing a fresh battery in it, but let's see if this thing will do it.
Flat tires means the door doesn't clear the fender, so I got to lift up a little bit. And there's last year's winter beater in the background. Maybe this will be this year's winter beater. Or maybe this will be the summer version and we'll have the winter version.
I also wasn't sure if I really did want to disturb any of this barn find dust and devalue the car by, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000. I think that's what authentic barn find dust is going for these days.
The jumper comes in a nice soft case with some USB cables and a charger and the alligator leads so that we can jump our battery. It only goes in one way, unless you try really hard to force it in there and do it wrong, and then it goes in either way. We'll clip it onto our battery.
All right, we'll give it a little help here.
So Grand Dams are notorious when they sit for the fuel injectors getting stuck closed. And a heat cycle is usually all it takes to free them up. But in order to get it warm, you have to run it off some carburetor cleaner.
Okay, let's see what happens. This fuel injectors will free up eventually after a heat cycle. At least that's my usual experience. This is much easier with friends. But we all know I don't have any. Well, it's not locked up. That's a good sign. It kind of fires. We just get some fuel in the engine. Should be all right. Too slow. So we've been playing the start and dying game for a little while here. It's got a little bit warmer, and I would have thought that we would have freed up those injectors and got some fuel in there. So now maybe it's time to check and see if we have everything we need to make it start. We know we have spark because it is starting to fire over, but maybe we have no fuel getting to the fuel injectors that may or may not be stuck. So let's start there and then we'll worry about if maybe there's some other internal issues, you know, with compression or something like that. But it doesn't sound too bad, so I'm thinking our compression's okay. But let's check our fuel pressure and see what happens.
There's a Schrader valve at the end of our fuel rail, right here behind our power steering pump, so we can use that to check our fuel pressure. Of course, in order to get to it, we're probably going to need a shovel to get through this dirt. Screw our quick adapter on here. And our fuel pressure gauge just has a quick disconnect that clips into that adapter. It also gives us a preliminary test. If it sprays fuel all over the place, you know you have a little pressure, and it didn't, so I'm a little worried. But we'll check it anyway. So we should be building fuel pressure while we're cranking it. I did cycle the key a couple times as well, and we got nothing.
Let's see if we can get some air in these tires, get this thing off the trailer. This one, a little hopeful. Looks like it might have 1.5 pounds in it already. The other two, I don't know, there's nothing in them, so they may not take care, but we'll try it, make it a little easier to roll. There isn't very many of these out there with these painted wheels instead of the chrome. I've probably had 10 or 15 that weren't chrome, and they were always from Texas. Apparently, the people in Texas only like chrome on their belt buckles and cordless hole punchers, not on their Grand Am wheels, so I don't know. It's a Texas thing, I guess. I did have one from Massachusetts, but it was a Texas transplant. I just fill them up till they're not flat on the bottom anymore, right? Or until the sidewalls blow out because they're all dry rotted. Whichever comes first. Or maybe I blow them up like the old cartoons where they become like 10 times the size they're supposed to be. That'd be funny. Well, didn't all go right out the sidewall, that's good. Don't know how long it's going to stay in there, but hopefully long enough to get it off the trailer. That's all we're concerned with right now. We'll get some new tires for this thing. A little word of caution, if you're going to put air in the tires when this thing is strapped down, make sure it wasn't strapped down by Hercules, because if the straps are nice and tight and you fill up the tires, it puts more tension on those straps and leads to a very violent unstrapping, or maybe not even be able to release it at all. So just a word of caution. Luckily these straps had a little play in them because, well, over 1,200 miles they'd wiggle themselves a little bit loose. They were still tight enough to hold the car in place, but there's enough give that, you know, I could still get them off of there. So let's unstrap it.
Ooh, something shiny. Captain ADD forgets he's supposed to be unstrapping it and decides to take the bumper out. Not sure why. Just bugging me for some reason. Maybe it's all the dirt. It must have been sitting that way, collecting all the dirt for a while. Brought half of Texas with me. Back door doesn't open. Probably due to that 3/4 inch door gap back there. Check and make sure that it's not locked. Still not working. Maybe we relocked it. Try it again. Yep, should be open.
We have no fuel pressure, so that's definitely a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and check it back here rather than checking the relays and wiring harness and everything. See if we got power back here, and that checks the entire system. So luckily Scott's Grand Am Emporium provided us with a nice little pigtail. I can just plug this into the body harness and then attach a test light to the back of this, and we'll find out if the pump is running. Makes it so much easier than testing it over here. Put this where you guys can see it. And grab a test light. Okay, so we just have a test light between our ground and our power for our fuel pump. So I'm gonna go cycle the key and let me know if that lights up. So after reviewing the footage, we definitely have a power and a ground, so we should have fuel pressure. Since we don't have fuel pressure, we definitely have a bad fuel pump. So let's go ahead and drop the tank, change out our fuel pump, and see if that gets our car to start.
So in order to jack it up, you're going to have to unstrap it. I decided I'm not going to take it off the trailer. I'm just going to go ahead and fix it on the trailer, mainly because it annoys the YouTube experts, and also because it's a lot easier to move on the trailer when it doesn't start, and I'm not sure that it's going to run just yet. So we're going to leave it up there for now. We're going to start by removing the vapor canister. It's not required, it just makes it a little easier to work in there, and it's not that hard to take off. It's one bolt and slides on a clip, and there's a couple lines that go to it. One we have to take off anyway because it goes to the fuel tank, and the other one goes to our purge valve, so that's the only thing extra we really have to take off of there. Of course, it's a little difficult with all this dust in there. Take off our vent valve, leave that attached to our vapor canister. We can disconnect our filler neck. Normally it's a little easier to get to that filler neck clamp, but because our quarter is pushed in, so is our filler neck, and it's kind of tucked behind the sway bar. So we just got it loose, and we'll spin it off by hand. Slide that clamp up. Now the fun part, trying to get this hose off of our filler neck. The rubber gets pretty tough. It doesn't expand very well. So it takes a little bit of twisting, prying, and pulling to get this thing loose. Getting it back on is just as much fun. At least it's not super cold. I have done this in sub-zero temperatures before. Not fun. Now we can disconnect our fuel return line. And we'll disconnect our supply line from our fuel filter. There's just a clip and you squeeze both sides and it slides out of there. Same thing with the return line. Just a little easier to get a trim clip plier in there. The return line, there was plenty of room. This one's right up against the fuel filter. And we can pull our heat shield down. There's one bolt that holds it to the body. A little push pin that holds it to our fuel tank strap. And we can unbolt our fuel tank strap. Unbolt the one on the other side. And you'd expect the fuel tank to fall out, but nope, they adhere themselves to the bottom of the car. So we're going to have to pry it down there. And this thing is 3/4 full. Hopefully I disconnected everything. If not, it's going to be disconnected the hard way. Slide it out from under our exhaust. Slide it out the side. We did that to move our jack stand so we could make some room in there. It's pretty sketchy where it's sitting right now, so safety experts, look away. We have our new fuel tank and fuel pump. Well, at least new to this car. It came from Scott's Grand Am Emporium. I didn't feel like going to the parts store. It was further than the Emporium. So we know this one works. We'll go ahead and stuff it in here. I don't even have to take it apart. So we'll slide it up underneath the exhaust. It's a lot easier. This tank was already emptied out, so it's a little easier to handle. Get stuffed up there, and then put our straps up. And at least start one of the bolts. Now we can reconnect our fuel lines. We'll start with our return line here. And I know better than to leave that retainer clip on there and try to clip it in. Because then you gotta try to get both of them to line up. But I was being lazy. Now we're gonna do it the right way. So you just pop that clip off of there. Just pry the little tabs up. Slide it off. Flip it into the fuel line. And slide it over the metal line and it'll clip right in. That's the way they're actually designed to go together. This one's a little different. It just has a lock on it. So we slide it on there and push the lock down. I'll go ahead and reconnect our filler neck. wiggle and push. Make sure it's all the way on there and not kinked at all. We'll go ahead and slide our hose clamp down and start tightening that up. We can plug in our fuel pump harness. This is the one that I had, that other one that I used as a test lead. I'll go ahead and throw our strap up there. And we'll tighten up the passenger side that we only had a couple threads in. Flip our heat shield into our tank strap. And put the bolt in the body. And go ahead and throw our vapor canister up here. Slide down to that tab. Of course, might as well hook up the lines first. It's much easier. They put a little oil on them, so they should slide together a little easier. Now we'll slide it up on that tab. One bolt in the back. We'll put our vent valve up there. Bolt that in. Plug that in. Now we're going to check everything. Go back through the assembly process in my head and make sure we got everything. Now we're going to pull our old fuel pump out and see if we can figure out what was wrong with it. Disconnect the wiring harness. We'll knock the lock ring loose, along with about 6 pounds of dust. And we'll blow it off of there before it ends up in the fuel tank. You don't find lock rings like that up here. They're usually all rusted away. Sometimes even so much that the tank starts to leak. Fuel pump is out. And I believe we found the problem. That hose is supposed to connect to the top of from our pump to the sending unit in the housing. So apparently it's all brittle, it just falls apart. As soon as I pressurized it, it just blew it apart, and we just had a fountain in there. Nothing was making it to the engine. So I'm fairly confident that we're going to have fuel pressure now. And sure enough, we do. We have all the fuel pressure. So I guess we don't need our gauge anymore. And it's still holding pressure, so we don't have any injectors leaking down or anything like that. Quick disconnect off of there and put the cap back on.
Well, now we have fuel pressure, which is a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, we had a car that was trying to fire off a carburetor cleaner to a car that has nothing with fuel pressure. And I think we might have broke something. Not necessarily broke something, but I think we might have flooded it out. Because unfortunately, the one benefit you don't get through video is the sense of smell. And I can definitely smell. So we've made a step in the right direction, at least I think. We have fuel pressure now, but unfortunately we had a car that was trying to fire on carburetor cleaner to a car that has nothing. It just cranks, it doesn't even try to fire anymore. And I think we might have broke something. Well, I think we might have flooded it out because unfortunately with video you miss the one thing that I'm using right here, and that's the sense of smell. I can definitely smell that it has some raw fuel, or at least what used to be fuel. So I'm thinking that whatever was in that tank probably soaked the spark plug.
No problem. It gets flooded. We'll just wait a few seconds. Or we can try it now.
So we're going to pull the spark plugs out. We're going to dry them out. Maybe shoot a little starting fluid in there, a little ether, and see if it'll fire over on that. Once we get it running, it should run. Since I smell that raw fuel, I'm thinking our injectors are open, so we should be good to go now that we got our fuel pressure. And then we'll take it right over to the gas station, which is right next door, and fill it up with some premium to, well, clear out any of the old gas that's in the fuel lines and fuel filter. Most people would be upset that they have a gas station right next to their house. I'm thrilled. I'm only upset that I don't have a driveway that goes straight there. I have to go out in the street. So let's get our spark plugs out of here and see if we can get it started.
We'll start with the easy side, the front. I'm gonna twist the spark plug wire a little bit and then pull it off of there. If you just try yanking it off of there, half of the wire won't come with. Actually, the boot will stay on the plug. So you just twist the boot to break it free from the spark plug, and then it pops right off. Take our spark plug loose, spin it out by hand. And it's a little wet. It's not supposed to drip like that. Let's put that in our pocket for later and head on to the next one. We don't have to worry about the location of these wires. They're original, so they are numbered, so we just put them back in order. This is 246 on this side. Well, it appears she was running a little rich. You're not supposed to have fuel dripping out of your spark plugs. So we're going to go ahead and dry those out, clean them up, and then stuff them back in there. Before you ask, why didn't you just buy new spark plugs? Well, I don't want to invest any money because it hasn't run yet. I don't even know what's wrong with it. And I'm cheap. Put our last spark plug wire on. All of our plugs are back in, and the front's done. We're going to head off into Narnia and change these rears. They're actually not really hard to get to. Well, there was one spark plug wire that was really fighting me. The boot didn't want to break loose from the spark plug. Took a lot of twisting. All of our plug wires are back on, our plugs are clean, and we gave it a little ether boost.
It's alive!
It's alive! It's alive!
Kind of. The jumper pack shut off. Our battery's completely dead. Might have to put a battery in it to be able to drive it. I don't know if it'll drive on this jumper pack, but it at least gets it to crank over. That's what we needed. I don't know if the alternator's not charging or what. Let's throw a battery in this thing and see what happens.
We'll pull off our little battery in a box and move our fuel pump in a can.
This thing's a boat anchor now. It's a minimum of 6 years old. Who knows how long it was in before they sent it to the salvage yard. And the benefits of a rust-free Texas car. If you're from the Midwest, chances are this bolt is frozen in there. And this car comes right out. I've had to replace many battery trays. Not today. I'll be selling that on eBay with authentic barn find dust. We got our new used battery. Came out of one of our other projects, but it's less than a year old, so it should work. Probably going to be its permanent home. Click. See if there's enough juice in this battery to start it. If not, we'll grab our jumper pack. It's got a dinger.
We didn't put any ether in it this time, and apparently it does not like that old gas, and it has cooled off enough, so it's a little bit hard starting right now. But we'll put our jumper pack on it, get it to spin a little faster. We'll see if that helps us out.
Uh-oh, an oil light on. Don't hear any knocking sounds, so I'm thinking we get a bad oil pressure sending unit. We'll worry about that later. So I did say I would be impressed if this thing would start this car. Not only did it start the car, but it actually kept it cranking while I was trying to diagnose it. So I am thoroughly impressed with this little guy. So if you have a project car that's been sitting in your garage, you know, like a Mustang that you haven't seen in years, or an auction car that's been sitting around for 6 years and you need to jump it, pick one of these up. Link is in the description. In addition to being a jumper, it's also got a neat little light in case your headlights go out and you want to tape it to your hood. And you can actually power, it's got a USB and a USB-C, a couple other ports on here. So you can actually charge things on the go. Pretty handy little guy. Enough talking, and let's get to what you guys are all still here for. Well, that was risky, putting that window down. Guess down isn't the problem. Up might be. If you don't know, the regulator plastics break a lot on these. So now we can start with our original damage. The reason it's in the auction. Looks like it didn't get out of somebody's way and caught the back end of the car here and kind of crunched in that quarter. It didn't move anything past the rails, just the end of the floor here is a little buckled. This body panel, I think we can straighten it. Taillight pocket, we'll probably go ahead and replace it. And a quarter panel. But let's push it out, see if we can get our deck lid to close and maybe even get a taillight on there. And if we're really lucky, get a bumper to fit on here.
Yeah, it didn't open before. Probably not going to open now. I guess it wasn't because it was strapped to the trailer. So we're going to have to figure something else out. Let's see what treasures await in the trunk, besides more dirt. That's not typically where you're supposed to find the hush panel. Where the rest of the tailors went. Floor mats. Decorative frisbee. Curtain rods. Dog shampoo. Screwdriver like that. All kinds of useless junk in here. Rock. A fidget non-spinner. With a spoon. Childhood memories. And a little teapot. And they left everything in this car. We didn't get a jack. Or a jack tray, but I know a guy that might have some. Now we can pull our trunk sill plate out of here because it's an 02. Just wiggle and pull to take it out. The newer ones, 03 and up, are held on by 4 screws. Now we can unclip our cargo net, take that out of there. Just loops around some T's that are screwed into the body panel. This bottom one's a little crunched. Cargo net. Pull the release to fold our seats down. Pull the bottom of our rear seat up. See what treasure's underneath there. Fold the back of the seats down. There's just some spring-loaded latches in there that hold the strikers that are on the edge of the seats in. So we'll just open those up and slide the little striker out of there. And these pieces of the seats pop right out. We'll take that ends of our seats out. Just one bolt in the bottom, 13 millimeter, and it slides up. We did all that just so we get this trunk carpeting, which wraps around underneath, out of our way. Goes underneath all the seating. Pull the stationary seat back out of our driver's side. Put that bolt out of the bottom and slide it up. Now we can unscrew our little T's. This is what our cargo net was attached to. It also holds the trunk liner. Now our liner should come out, but this one's pinched in there. So we're just going to yank it out of there. To unclip the front of it, wrapped itself back around the car seat holder. And then we'll toss this in the pile. Probably not putting it back in. I have plenty of these, not even worth cleaning. We'll pull the one off this side, same way. Pull a little T's off of there. And pull the liner up. Clip it from the front. And toss it in the pile. Now we're going to go ahead and set up our little frame rack on a stick. Find a nice solid point to push against. And it should be good. A bracket there, and wheelhouse. I don't think it's going to move. At least not before the quarter panel does. And we're just going to start pushing it out. Get as far as we can. It's probably going to need to go further than the ram will allow, so we'll have to release it and put an extension in there and keep pushing. It's a little slow going. We'll take our time, and then we're going to move it around. We're not just going to push in one particular spot. We're going to kind of move it up and down and push everything together. We found a new spot to push on. We'll try that, see how it works. Sometimes the spot you pick isn't the best, so you just find another one if it's not moving where you want it to go. To check and make sure the other side wasn't moving. Looking good so far. Now before we push our quarter any further out, we're going to go ahead and push our wheelhouse out a little bit. See if we can straighten out that floor, but more than likely we're not going to be able to get that floor straight unless we take the quarter off and pull on the floor itself, because the welds are just going to pull out of there. A little stress relieving, give us a little bit of a shot. A little more pressure on it. We can move it out of the way and a little more hammering on our floor, try to get it straight if we can. Then we're going to go ahead and work the rest of our wheelhouse, get the rest of it all the way up nice and straight. We can unclip our harness from our reinforcement and stuff this wiring harness through our body panel. Now that we got it pulled out enough, we can actually get that little grommet out of there. And we'll unclip the wiring harness from inside the trunk, tuck it out of our way so we aren't smashing it. And with that out of the way, we can start pushing out on our quarter. We're going to let highly caffeinated Scott do this. It goes a little faster, and you can see it move a little better. Going to keep working that quarter all the way around. A little stress relieving as we go. So you've got everything pretty close. We're going to spend a little more time getting that rear body panel, at least the lower part, nice and straight, because we are going to save that part no matter what. Even if we do decide to change the quarter panel and that taillight pocket, our rear body panel here is definitely staying. We'll straighten out that corner of our deck lid because it is overlapping our quarter. And we could straighten this out and reuse this deck lid, but because it does have hail damage on it, it's probably not even worth the time we're going to invest in it. These things are pretty easy to find, even in the right color, so I think we'll just go look for one. But we're still going to spend a little time getting it nice and straight, so it looks pretty when we throw it away. dollying out that buckle in there. Still not sure why. And it latches. We gotta get our taillight pocket a little straighter. Put some buckles in here. We do have our ram in there pushing out against the side. That's why we're able to hammer these buckles out of there. And we can't get all the way in there because we've got that little bumper bracket. So we'll just use a punch. Hammer it out. I'm just getting it close. We're going to end up changing all that anyway. Stick our trunk gasket back on there. See if our trunk closes. Gap is not too bad on the driver's side. Fits our taillight. Passenger side leaves a little bit to be desired. But we now have a 4-door once again. That's just from pushing our quarter around. Took the stress off that latch and now our door works. When we started, this gap was non-existent. You can actually see the little bend in the deck lid where it overlapped the quarter. We did close up our door gap to our quarter, but we could go a little bit more. And our quarter to our deck lid could go a lot more. So we'll pull what's left of our taillight out of here and get ready to press our luck and see if we can get a new taillight in here. One that's in one piece, anyway. Before we can do that, we have to push our quarter panel out a little bit. So you can see, as I push that out, you can see our body panel moving forward. Now that we have the tension on there, we can stress relieve it. Get the rest of these buckles out of our taillight pocket here. I could probably take the time and pull that bumper bracket off, but I don't want to. Looks like we're getting pretty close. Got most of those buckles out of there. We might be able to get a taillight to fit. Gotta pull our wiring harness clips out of here. They were broken. And when the bumper came off, it just kind of tore those out of there. Flip our harness back in there. And there's not supposed to be that much wire hanging out of the end of the split loop. So we're just gonna go inside and pull it back through. Kind of looped up in there. Pull it back to the length of the other ones, and that's what it should look like. We can stuff our wiring harness back through that we took out earlier. Now that our body panel is the correct shape again. Now we'll go ahead and plug our taillight in there. See if it works and if it fits. Amazingly enough, all the holes lined up. We go ahead and install the little thumb screws that hold our taillight in there. Flip our wiring harness back on our bumper reinforcement. And now we can pull out our little push pins that are supposed to be holding our energy absorber in. We didn't get one of those. Luckily, I know a guy that's got one. We have our new absorber. Make sure we don't leave that license plate light back there. Put our push pins in, and that's all that holds that in. Make sure our deck lid closes. Since we pushed our quarter out a little bit, we can hopefully get this gas pocket out of here. It made it a little adventurous trying to put gas in this thing. There's a couple of push pins that hold it onto the filler neck. Well, there's supposed to be a couple, there's only one left. And that's a little crunched. Now we can pull off the rest of our rear bumper. couple little bolts here that are supposed to be on a plastic bracket. Now we have our little ends. Put some vice grips on there because I've learned my lesson trying to hold on to that little piece of plastic. After you lose enough skin, you start using vice grips. This side we gotta bend our quarter back a little bit. Apparently when the bumper came off, it got pulled all the way around. Bent it up a little bit. There's a couple more brackets underneath the taillights. There's supposed to be some plastic that this little metal screw is encased in, but the plastic didn't survive. And that's the last of our old bumper.
I'm back from Scott's Grand Am Emporium with a bumper for our car. And in answer to the question, why do you drive that piece of junk ProMaster? Well, sometimes it's about being practical and not being cool. Trust me, it's never about being cool for me.
I'm gonna go ahead and throw our bumper up here, see how it fits. Make sure to plug the license plate light in first. I always lose those harnesses in there, and they're no fun to get out. A couple tabs on the bottom of the bumper. Always want to get stuck. Fight you putting it on. You gotta pull them down, make sure they go over that styrofoam. Push that bracket in. Flip it into the quarter. And we'll put the nut on the back of that bumper bracket so that it doesn't fall out of there while we go work on the other side. That side lines up, amazingly enough. Bolt on this side. And we'll snug it up. And put some bolts in the front edge. Just one on each side because we're efficient. We're going to have to take it apart later. And the bracket happened to be broken and there was only a place to put the top bolts in. We'll put our push pins on the bottom to hold it to our reinforcement. And that's what's left of our old bumper. Now I'm going to strip down the bumper. Not that we need any of this hardware, but these screws are actually pretty good. If you have plastic that's stripped out, they're very coarse and they'll grab on where regular screws don't. So I like to save them. Found a lot of uses for them. And they're the same for all of the brackets on them. And we'll pull our lights out of there. One of them's still good, but speed nuts are, and around here those speed nuts corrode and rust away to nothing, so I got some brand new ones. This light, we're only saving the speed nuts because the light is destroyed. Pull our license plate light out of here. Just loosen up the screw on the one side, you don't have to take it all the way out. And on the other side, you have to take the screw all the way out. And we pop out our retainers for our license plate screws. And now the most important part, we need to save our black molding. And because it was baking in the Texas sun, I assume it's going to be a little brittle, so we're definitely going to have to heat it up nice and hot. Make sure we don't crack it. Not to mention it's cold out here. I'm just going to heat it. Slide a screwdriver in there to break that two-sided tape loose and just work our way all the way around. I don't care if we melt the bumper cover. We're throwing it away anyway. But these moldings are hard to find, especially this one long piece. We happen to have a new gas door pocket. We're going to stuff that in there, hold our filler neck in place, and make putting gas in this thing a little easier, at least until we get the quarter panel on it.
So the only light we have on the dash is just our little Aladdin lamp. So let's go ahead and change our oil pressure sending unit and see if we can turn that thing out. It's right down here on the front of the motor above the starter. Pretty easy to get to from underneath, so let's hop underneath.
Now this is something that you can't do on Midwestern cars. Take these thumb screws out of here. They're usually frozen in there. And I clean up the threads on them. I never seize them, and they still freeze up in there. So people end up cutting them out. That's how you get to the oil filter. They cut this one out because apparently in Texas, they think that that is hard to take off. They would never survive up by us. Most of the ones up here are cut just like that because then you can reach up in there. And there's our sending unit. So we'll unplug it. Plenty of dirt on it. Doesn't look like there's anything wrong with it. Get our socket on it. Feel like I'm breaking some kind of unwritten rule. I got a snap-on socket on a Mako ratchet. Something's gonna go wrong here. That's a specific socket for oil pressure sending units. Should be able to take it out by hand the rest of the way. Looks like there might be a little junk in there. That might be why it doesn't work. So we have a new one, a new used one. I've parted out plenty of these motors, so I had an extra. This one's a little shorter. It's off of a newer car. In 02, they switched a lot of production. Half of the cars were like the 03s and up, and the other half were the 01s and down. Well, and then 99 was all by itself for a lot of stuff. We got it started in there. We did put some Teflon tape on it. We're just going to tighten it up. Click. Go ahead and plug it back in. Figure out which way the plug is facing now. There we go. That's all there is to it. Go ahead and put this little cover back up here, just because we can. Well, we're going to have to change the oil, but we'll do that later. We're going to have some other mechanical work to do as well. Click.
Moment of truth. See if we've put the genie back in the bottle. And we have. Got a brake light, but got the e-brake on. All right, we're out of lights, except for the seatbelt light. Success. Since I know you won't believe me without proof. There it is, right between the 1 and the 2. And it's gone. At least it was gone. Yep, still gone. These dashes usually peel. This is the first one I've seen with a big split down the center. Those 6 years in the auction were brutal. Not bad for a little bit of work and a couple of parts. It actually looks pretty much like most of the cars up here in Chicago. With a spray can and 5 gallons of Bondo, it'll look better than 90% of the cars here in Chicago. And it doesn't have any rust. So I don't know what we're gonna do with this thing. Do I drive it as a beater just like this? Because, well, I have nothing in this car. Or do I go ahead and go full on and change a quarter, a deck lid, take care of our hail dents in our roof and paint whatever needs to be painted? I don't know. I think we're definitely gonna have to clean it because the dirt in there is even bothering me, and that's saying a lot. So next time it comes back, maybe we'll do some work on it, unless of course somebody wants to buy it just like this, in which case, well, I'll let it go. And we all know the rules. You buy a Texas car, you get a broken windshield. It comes free. So we definitely have to put a windshield in this thing before we can get it for a safety test in order to get our title done. So if it comes back, we'll go ahead and do at least the quarter in the deck lid on the back and then decide how far we're going to go with the rest of it. The reason I say if is somebody might want to buy it as is and do the work themselves. And then you can go watch it on their YouTube channel if they want to do that. But not sure. I'll be happy to sell it as is or drive it or go all in and fix the whole thing. So we'll figure out the future of this car, well, down the road a little bit. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. And if you need a jumper pack for your car that's been sitting in the auction for 6 years, or maybe a Mustang that's been who knows where for the last, 4 years, link is in the description to go ahead and pick one up for yourself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh- I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh- I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.